Okay.
So we are learning about Tonga, and I have 3 questions to answer.
Okay, so the first question, going from the website, talking about how with education it starts at like 6 years old and then goes till 14, and that's like where it stops. So my question is, why don't people continue their education after the age of 14? That is.
In Tonga, their curriculum is based on New Zealand and Australia's curriculum, and they feel as though the material that they learn in school is irrelevant to the knowledge they need in life in Tonga. And so there's this gap where they almost just don't care as much because they can get along fine without it, so why bother when nothing that they learn in school is going to continue or be used in their life later on.
Okay. I'm trying to think. The other question that I had was, how can we, with the people of Tonga, especially when it comes to antenatal care for those women who are pregnant, I know that there was a high infant mortality rate that went along with that. So how can we change their perspective to make and attend their antenatal appointments? Because I know that that's something that caused maybe some of those deaths.
I think it's on both sides for fault. The women who aren't attending their meeting or appointments, and it's also the fault of the medical personnel because they're not trained enough to, make sure that these women are coming back every so often, whenever they need their appointments. And so it could be that it has to do with, they're not scheduling the next appointment before they leave. It could be, maybe the women just call and cancel it. But changing it would just be, start with the medical personnel and make sure that they are rescheduling before that woman ever leaves again, and call to confirm the appointment or get a hold of them, however they do. Confirm the appointment and follow up after the appointment with them, and that much contact and care would get them coming back through.
Okay. Last question goes to the nice picture that you had on the front of the website. Going to a lot of different islands, have some family in Hawaii, have some good friends from Samoa as well as Tahiti, and I've recognized that the Tongans and the Samoans, they're always big in stature, okay? And so my question is, why are they so, I don't know, large in stature?
I've been told that the reason for their large stature is when their island is faced with, drought or damages from storms, or they have a poor year for crops. During the good seasons, they will consume a lot of food to sustain them through those hard times. So they eat a lot, so they build up this reservoir of nutrients that their body can feed off of if the nutrients aren't in. So
Good.
That answers the 3 questions. Then we also learned about the 8 developmental goals, or millennial 8 developmental goals. And those are basically, they want to, the United Nations is who came up with them, and they developed these goals in order to build up these developing countries and try to bring them more to our level all around. So they're worried about gender equality, increasing or decreasing infant mortality rate. They're worried about increasing their environmental sustainability, and so they're trying to bring up all these. They're trying to lift this country up, and so these goals we applied to Tonga, and in Tonga they're doing pretty well. All the information that I found is they're not doing so bad. I mean, they have housing, they have one of them is trying to eliminate poverty. And for Tongans, they have their house, they have shelter, they have all these things, and they live more meager. Don't need as many things, or don't have as many, but they still have the essentials, and they still have beds, and they still have tables and chairs. So I feel like Tonga, in regards to poverty, they're doing all right. Very low percentage. But the purpose of these goals is just, to build them up and help them out, so that we can uniformly be above poverty level all over the world.
Gotcha.
So in Tonga, there are a few different okay. So for each of their goals, education is one of them. They're trying to raise the bar for education, and they're doing pretty well. All the children go to school, but the problem is that it's not stressed to be too much of an importance, and so the children are only required, like you had mentioned before, 6 to 14 to go to school, and for some people they only go 6 consecutive years, starting at age 6. So I don't know how you differentiate who goes till 14, who goes till 12, but they are not they have a problem continuing education to high school, to college, and then they just stay in this repetitive cycle of going on with, their island lifestyle. And so they could do better in their educational goals. A lot of making it more of an importance and keeping the kids in longer until they get to the point of being a young adult, like 18, and their whole purpose, the United Nations, is to have met all these goals by 2015, and so we're in the last year, and there's all these countries that some of them are just not meeting their goals. Yeah. They're not meeting the standards that they had hoped for. And I'm pretty sure they're working right now on already developing what goals for the next chunk of time that they're going to set. But Tonga's doing pretty great. There is a problem a little bit with gender equality because it is such a patriarchal society that the men are superior. So the women will have no say in their family, in big family choices. All the men will come together and discuss and decide. Infant mortality is low, but they don't know the exact numbers because there's no proper documenting, there's no keeping track as much, there's no punishments if they do not report their numbers, and so there could be a lot that could improve a lot. They still have a lot of room for improvement in increasing or decreasing infant mortality so that children are surviving longer.
Okay.
Then there is, they want to decrease HIV and AIDS and other non-communicable diseases. And so right now they're doing well. They don't really have a problem with HIV or AIDS.
Good.
And maternal health is part of that also. And so it's not. So they don't really have a problem with that. They're doing great there. They have the medicine if they were to need it, but there's not really much of a problem. Maternal health is good. Also room for improvement. They are a lot of the problems there is that they just don't have the best medical care.
Gotcha.
Not enough doctors, so they're being treated by nurses, and nurses don't have the same education and the same knowledge as a doctor, so they're basically doing the best they can,
Right.
but they don't know how to help in a lot of situations. Another one is that they're global partnerships. So that was the United Nations goal, and so they want to try to help, build this country, and so they're trying to work with different countries, and they have a pretty good rapport with, they work really well with New Zealand and Australia, so they have help coming from outside countries. And then environment sustainability, they are doing well-ish. There's a lot of room for improvement there because the country is, most of it has to do with their, they have good water sources, but their country is so littered because they don't have proper,
waste management stuff?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so one thing that they're trying to do is to implement more, they're trying to increase the amount of people who are working together to clean up the country.
Yeah, okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, they're trying to get more trash services so that people have a place to put them instead of just
throw it wherever.
throw it on the ground
Yeah.
because there's nowhere else to put it. So these goals, they're great goals. They have really improved along the way. There are certain things with Tonga that have been the same. As far as education there, they have a 98% literacy rate and have for many, many years. And there's a few years where it switches between 98 and 99%.
Good.
So they're doing great as far as that. As far as the goals, I don't think that there's any goals that I feel the United Nations has left out. I think what they have and what they're working with is great. I think for improvement, I think Tonga needs their own curriculum so that it can be more meaningful to them, and then they're not just
using someone else's material for things that they don't need.
Right. And so that's what I feel most for improvement. And then their other thing is the litter that takes so much, what's the word? It decreases their value so much because of how much garbage is just littered everywhere. And then everything starts looking run down and people stop caring as much about presentation and how things look. So if you can get rid of that problem, I feel like you could gradually build up and work on improvements for how well things are built or, whatever it may be. And then improving in another meaningful way is to teach the people how to balance gender equality so that the women have more of a say without being disrespectful, of course, but giving them more of a part in society, and so I think for the future, Tonga's looking great. They're definitely on an uphill climb towards success in all these goals. I don't think they're going to quite make their goal for all 8 Millennial Development Goals, but for the most part, I feel like at least a good 80% they're going to make those goals, and that Tonga will continue to be successful. So, that's it.